Hello and welcome. For this week's video, I decided I would read a bedtime story, and this one came across my desk, and I thought it was really appropriate. So it's called Is It True by Olga Adams. It's about some zoo animals, and it was written in 1941, and I thought it'd be really interesting. Coincidentally, I was going to read my daughter Rena a story this evening for bed, so this would be a perfect opportunity for me to read it to you and to her as well. So, Rena, if you wouldn't mind coming in here. Have a seat. We've got a nice fire going. Is It True by Olga Adams. Tell me, Mr. Brown, is it really true that all the animals in your zoo drink milk? The grown-up ones as well as the babies? Well, Jack, that is almost true in this zoo, said the guard. The birds and the snakes and other reptiles do not drink milk, but all the rest of the animals have milk in some form every day. Jack and Alice had come to the zoo one holiday morning with their father. They asked so many questions about the animals before they ever reached the big gate that Father finally said, "You are too much for me. Let's ask a guard. He ought to know the answers." So anytime you need questions about a zoo, always ask the guard. That's the one who knows most things about zoo animals. Without waiting for another word, Jack turned to the guard standing in front of the polar bear's den and began to ask him questions. The guard name was Mr. Brown. He was wearing a red coat and dark blue trousers. That might come in handy later to know. "I'll tell you what I'll do," said Mr. Brown, "if your father is willing. I'll walk around the zoo with you and tell you more about this milk These grown-up monkeys were born in the southeastern part of Asia in a country called Burma. They came to the zoo when they were quite small. The babies were born here. They are still getting milk from their mothers. The big monkeys drink milk with each meal." "Even the father," said Jack. That's so Jack. He's very inquisitive, that Jack. "Yes, even the father needs milk to keep him well," said Mr. Brown. "The guard," I added, the guard. "Mr. Brown talks the same way about milk for the animals as Mother does about milk for us, doesn't he?" Alice laughed, "'cause it's funny." "Oh, it's the elephants playing with their keeper. There are a couple girls over there who get pretty noisy when it's eating time," said Mr. Brown. "Do you call those huge animals girls?" laughed Alice. Again, it's very Alice, she's very funny. "Why, yes," said Mr. Brown, "they are about your ages. The large is 10 and the smaller is 8 years old. Look at them go for that milk." Of course, they did not have milk in their native country after they stopped nursing their mothers, but we find that they grow very well on it here. Each one drinks 4 gallons of milk a day. Do you know how many glasses of milk that would be? "I guess we'll have to figure that out later," said Jack. 3 long-necked giraffes were eating from a basket that hung near the ceiling of the house. One stopped to gaze down at Alice. "What are you eating, old funny face?" she said. "Anyway, you are too big to drink milk." "There you are wrong, Alice," said Mr. Brown. "All of these baby giraffes have their milk every day. It is difficult to keep giraffes in good health away from their native countries, and we have found this food will do it." "Why, those are the hind legs of the babies," said Mr. Brown. "They have to stick out because there's not enough room for them in the pouch. When that baby was born, he was about as big as my thumb and he had no hair. He stayed down in that warm, dark pocket all of the time, for that is where his mother nursed him. Now he's about 4 months old and goes in and out of the pouch as he wishes. Very soon his mother will find him too big to carry around. Then he will get his milk with his cereal as she does." "Do these kangaroos come from Australia?" asked Father. Finally, Father weighing in on a question he wants to know also. "Yes," said the guard. "That is the only country where this queer kind of animal is found." "That nose is as much for digging as it is for smelling," said Mr. Brown. "This is an anteater from Central and South America. How do you ever get enough ants in here to keep that big animal alive?" asked Jack. "We can't get enough ants," said Mr. Brown, "and so this anteater is given a queer mixture of dried meats and insects with milk added to it. He seems to enjoy it as much as he ever did his ants. Look at him and tell me how much you know his food is right for him." And both Jack and Alice proved that they had learned the lesson about right food for animals. "My legs are getting tired," said Jack, "but I'd like to see the rest of the animals." "I say all home for this trip," said Father. "We can come back another time." Jack and Alice agreed that they were ready for their milk after watching the animals eating and drinking. "Off for home," they cried, and as they thanked Mr. Brown for the interesting things he had told them. The end. Okay, time for bed. Good night, Rena. I love you. I really hope you enjoyed this book. Is It True? Written by Olga Adams, 77 years ago. Written in 1941, I'm sure that thousands and thousands of children and adults benefited from the great information in this book about zoo animals and their perfect food. What's really amazing about this book, and my favorite part of it, is the copyright, which is at the very bottom. Copyright 1964, revised 1954, original copyright 1941, National Dairy Council, Chicago. It's a true classic. Imagine 77 years ago, this. Cut to now, 2018, diabetes.